Eric here. AMD just reported they absolutely crushed it. We knew they would, and they came through. There was a lot of naysayers. People are trying to stay away from the semiconductor stocks because of inflation. AMD crushed it. Sales jumped 71%, shrugging off concerns about PC slowdown. So you think about the PCs, and this is one thing about semiconductors. You think of NVIDIA, you think of AMD. A lot of people assume that PCs are the only thing left, for them to drive revenue and sales. Of course, these big dogs are pushing more into those data center, into the cloud. That's why I'm so bullish on stocks like NVIDIA and AMD, all those secular tailwinds. You think of autonomous driving, you think of cloud, you think of AI, you think of whatever, 5G, 6G, robotics. I mean, anything you can think of, secular growth trends. Even when you think of genomics, semiconductors are the fuel. They're the new oil. And AMD is crushing it. Now, we do have supply chain constraints. We have shortages of commodities, of gases, all these different risks, and yet they still come through. So let's break it down. I've been in this stock for a while. If you watch my top semiconductor stocks, AMD is number 2, behind, of course, NVIDIA, the number 1 stock on the list. AMD is a great company, okay? That 71% growth. Wait till you see some of these numbers, guys. And later I'm going to break down. I'm going to actually show you the price of sales, the PE ratio. I'm going to show you a chart as well. It's up nicely after hours. So you look at this, guys, earnings per share, $1.13 adjusted. That was versus 91 cents expected. That's up 117% year over year. Now, of course, Xilinx is part of that. We'll get to that here in a second. Revenue, $5.89 billion versus $5.52 billion. That's up 71% year over year. Absolutely just crushing on these numbers. AMD said it expected $6.5 billion in sales in the current quarter, ahead of analyst expectations of $6.38 billion. They also raised guidance for next quarter as well as the entire year. So just solid all the way around, a beat and a raise, which is what you want to see as an investor. So this part here, guys, one highlight for AMD is its high-end server chip business, which primarily competes with Intel. Now, Intel actually just recently lowered guidance, I believe, and they're not doing very well. They're getting beat up pretty bad by these other stocks that we like to talk about on Fired Up Wealth. So you look at this, they said that a lot of analysts thought that PC sales would shrink. You think of work from home, you think of, people needed more computers and laptops for working from home, for school, staying at home, just, having entertainment, what have you. And they thought that there was going to be a pandemic PC boom and that sales would kind of fall off. Well, AMD's proven them wrong, especially with this Xilinx acquisition, pushing more in the data center and the cloud, just like NVIDIA's as well. PC sales are reported in AMD's computing and graphics segment. Actually rose 33% on an annual basis, was up 8% higher than December quarter. So numbers are actually pretty good. People are still buying these processors, and it does say here that the average sales price rose. So it's about supply and demand. They can raise the prices, and that helps too a little bit as well. Cloud server sales are reported in AMD's, they call it the embedded enterprise and semi-custom segment. That increased 88% to $2.5 billion. AMD said the rise was driven by higher server processor sales as well as semi-custom sales, which are the heart of things like the PlayStation 5. So cool stuff. AMD stock has had a rough 2022. At one point intraday, it was down 42%. Well, if you bought it under $100, like I've been saying, it's heading back there now. I'll show you a chart here in a second and show you where I think it might go. I mentioned earlier, last week, Intel gave a disappointing forecast for June, and a lot of people thought AMD might have the same problems because Intel's saying that they're going to have weak PC demand because of macroeconomic headwinds. Looks like AMD is navigating the ship a little bit better than some of its competition. They did complete the acquisition of Xilinx in February, actually on the 14th, which is Valentine's Day, and said that the results included 6 weeks of revenue from the deal. And without Xilinx sales, revenue would have only increased 55% year over year to $5.3 billion. So that is something to recognize, just to be aware of. When you have these acquisitions, it does wonky stuff with the numbers. That's important. As an investor, it's important for us to know. And now this is important, guys. AMD has $8 billion authorized where they can buy shares of the stock back. And they've only purchased $1.9 billion of that $8 billion so far. So there's quite a bit of money left on the table where they can buy their stock back, something to be aware of. Quarterly summary, guys, I'm not going to read all this, but they absolutely crushed it. Record revenue, $5.9 billion. That grew 71%. and 22% quarter over quarter. If you look over here on the right, quarterly revenue, so Q1 2021 to Q1 2022, year over year quarter, that's from 3.4 billion to 5.9 billion. That's 71% year over year growth. Record operating cash, 995 million. Record free cash flow of 924 million. I don't see much negative on this at all. I have not listened to the earnings call. I plan on doing that after I do this. I wanted to get this out to you on YouTube as soon as I could. Record revenue for computing and graphics, $2.8 billion, up 33% year over year, driven by their processor sales, on and on and on here. Good stuff, guys. So enterprise, this is where we talk about the data center chips. Record revenue, 2.5 billion, up 88% year over year. Good numbers there. AMD did complete the acquisition of Xilinx, which is going to focus more on those data center chips. That completed in February 14th, 2022. You remember on the channel, we talked about there was a lot of short interest. And when this acquisition closed, a lot of those shorts covered. Of course, then the market rolled over and shorts kind of came back in. But Xilinx adds multiple high margin, long-term revenue streams spanning a new set of markets for AMD. And this is exciting as an investor. Xilinx generated 559 million of revenue for the 6 weeks of Q1 2022. So only 6 weeks on there. On a pro forma basis for the full quarter, Xilinx generated $1.04 billion of revenue. That was up 22% year over year. Now here's the revenue trend. A ramp up, guys. This is what you want to see. This is Q2 2020, and they're crushing it. It's like taking the stairs up. And you want to see that continuously, rise and go up as an investor. That's what you want to see. You look at gross margin, you can see they're doing pretty good in that range. 48%, a little bit of a dip, but back to kind of historic levels here of the Q2 2021. This is gross margin expansion. Earnings per share trend, you got 24% year over year to 56 cents. I'm sure there was some supply chain tailwinds, maybe labor shortages, extra costs. I'd have to listen to the earnings call and get more insight into that. Drop some comments below and add to this, because we're going to find out more about earnings as we listen to the earnings call, as we see more information come out. I'm just getting this to you as fast as I can here as soon as earnings came out. Earnings per share trend up 117% year over year. You can see a nice steady increase here from 18 cents all the way to $1.13, which is what you want to see. Now let's look at the valuation. The first thing I want to do is look at price to sales. Now, based on an $89.84 stock price, the price to sales was 6.73. Now you might see that and say, if you're a new investor, especially if you're a growth investor from 2021, you might see that and say, oh, 6.73, that's not bad. Well, it is expensive based on historic measures, so it's important to look at the past. This stock didn't do well for a long time. It traded sideways. You can see, if you look at the price of sales down here, it was under a 1 for a long time. Now, this is not the same company today as it was even 5 years ago, and they've made a lot of improvements. Lisa Su, the CEO, is doing a phenomenal job turning this company around. And you can see that, it's gotten more expensive. You're paying a premium because people are excited about the future of the company. This thing got to 11.32 price to sales. It has come back now to 6.72, but the stock's actually climbing after hours here, so it's getting more expensive as I talk. If I look at the PE ratio, guys, 35.42. It's a little bit higher than that now because it is up 5.89% after hours. Year to date, as of today's close, it was down almost 40%. If I look at a 1 year, it's still up about 16% over the past year. It's now up 7.32%. You see that here? So market cap on this guy is a little bit less than $150 billion. It's located in California, and Lisa Su's been the CEO since 2014. The company's been around since 1969. So a very different company, of course. It's evolved over time. And there's about 15,500 employees based on 2021. Let's look at a chart here and see what the stock is doing. So you can see it was in a downward channel and it was making lower lows. This orange here was a chart day. So we do chart day in Patreon every Wednesday. You can join us if you'd like. Check out the link in the description below if you ever want to join our private community. So I said under $100, in my opinion, IMO, it's a buy. But I said semiconductors lead both ways. They're cyclical in nature. Even though I do think that there are secular growth trends that will pull these forward, we do have supply chains. So as an investor, it's important to understand we do have supply chain issues. Now, AMD just beat and raised. So I'm really curious to see what they have to say in the earnings call. Again, drop comments below. Let's have a conversation. Let's update the information to everybody in the community. So if you look at this, AMD, I mentioned earlier, repurchased $1.9 billion in stock. They have $8.3 billion left that they can purchase. And I said that, 83 is what we said on chart day. I said it might hold up 85. It got down basically to $84 and bounced off. Now this dotted blue line here, you can see it's trading post-market at $97.90. It needs to get back above this blue line. It really probably needs to get back over this R1. So if you look at this R1, it's about $104.23. If you could break $105, it would break out of that channel and you could see it go bullish higher. Of course, we've got, the Fed tomorrow going to raise rates. If they're hawkish, you could have the whole market sell off, lower, and this stock could get hit with it. So, be careful. But looking at a chart, the lowest on here, S3, was down here at 66. I thought maybe worst case scenario would come to this S2, which is around $75. I said it'd probably hold up in the 85 range, and here we are. And now it's trading just on $100 a share. If you have not subscribed to the channel, click subscribe, click the bell to get notifications. If you like these videos, help me out. Drop me a like, drop me a comment. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.